LPU Laguna is one of the educational institutions offering quality education to its students, aiming to make a relevant change to the nation. It upholds its core values, namely God-centeredness, leadership, integrity, innovation, nationalism, and service-orientedness. While accomplishing its mission and attaining its vision, the institution aims to produce lifelong learners and integral individuals who can make a difference to the society. We have interviewed several members of the Lycean community regarding how they observe, apply, and practice these core values in their daily lives. How can you practice these core values in your daily life?
I can practice the LPU Laguna core values by integrating them in the things that I do. For example, as a future healthcare provider, I think performing my duties with these core values will result to a more effective and speedy health process for my future patients. And I also think that I can be more efficient and relevant healthcare provider with these core values.
We can practice this at our homes na as a kunyari as a panganay ka sa family mo, tapos dapat you know how to guide them kung paano gawin yung tama.
In my daily life, siguro I'll categorize it. At saka I think it's innovation, not innovative. So for short, we call it lean. So work, especially on my field of work as student affairs, I'm always guided by our core values, especially in terms of God-centeredness. I am also as a Catholic, I also attend Mass, and then at LP Laguna, we have this regular First Friday Mass during the face-to-face classes. So First Friday Mass si OSA, and then leadership. Technically, it's really the heart of Office of Student Affairs. I handle all our student leaders, the student organizations. I am also an advisor of the Lyceum Supreme Student Council. So most of the time, I take being the leader for them. I guide them, but at the same time, I let them decide. I let them decide of what they want. Parang ano lang ako, as an advisor lang, pinaka-guide lang nila anong gusto nilang gawin, and then if it's right or is it wrong, or is it for the good of everybody. As for LSCC, it governs all the highest student governing body of the LP Laguna. And then for integrity, at all costs, lahat tayo, hindi man tayo nasa LP Laguna, it's very important that we do everything in honesty. So, yun. So, syempre, dapat sa araw-araw na ginagawa ko sa buhay, dapat totoo lang ako. And then, innovation, from time to time, yearly we have planning, so we make sure na we offer our students only the best. Hindi siya stagnant. We apply innovation in terms of planning, kung ano bang pwede namin i-offer pa kay students or sa aming other stakeholders pa. Nationalist, ano yung N? Letter N natin, being nationalistic, and then service orientation, nakaangkla na, I think it's also connected to leadership. Serving me, working for an university, especially LP Laguna is very passionate in serving our students as inspired by our founder, si JPL. So it's also nakita ko din na pag yung pagmamahala na develop namin sa mga students, and then sa pag-grow ng LPU every year. So I think dun siya pumapasok.
Practicing these core values starts with acknowledging or knowing these values by heart. Like for example, I think one of the most important core values that LPU has is the God-centeredness. So I practice that daily because in every situation you seek God first and everything will be alright.
Does applying these core values necessary? Why?
Yes, because as part of the Laisian community, we are expected to use these core values not only inside our institution but also outside of its premises. And we are Lyceans regardless of the place we're at, and whenever and wherever we are expected to use these core values because it only proves that Lyceans are truly the hope of the future, and for this reason, LPU can be the leading higher educational institution in the whole country.
You to help us. These are just actually guide. Hindi naman necessary na aning natin siya para mapapaisip tayo bakit hindi naman kailangan i-follow natin yan. Pero kaya nga tayo may guide. Parang yung core values yan, parang rules lang sa ating school, sa ating buhay na eto nakakatulong to make us better persons. These core values help us to do yun nga, what is good and what is right. These are just guide. Hindi siya necessary sundin, pero we should know na essential siya para sa atin to help us to be better person, not just at our school, but to our community.
Applying the core values naturally, hindi pilit, hindi siya parang ginagawa ko siya kasi gusto ko siyang talagang may ano kay student or kung sa kay mga kaibigan ko. Ano lang, parang simple lang. If I want, yun nga, pag-lead ko sa mga officers, pag-guide sa kanila, ganon, I'm being true to myself. I think yun yung, and then it goes naturally sa mga makakasalamuha ko, mapa-student or mapa-workmate man.
Yes, of course, I believe that applying these core values is necessary because in one's organization, core values serve as the foundation in achieving their vision and mission.
What is the impact of these core values to you as an individual?
As an individual, I think the impact of LPU core values to myself is I became a more disciplined, responsible, and innovative student, most especially in these trying times, and my views about the things that has been happening right now was changed by the nationalistic spirit strengthened by the institution through its core values.
Yung sa leadership, syempre, sa ating college may mga organization tayo, natutulungan nito tayo, yung leadership na core value na LPU, to be leaders just like JPL, na siyang founder natin here sa LPU. He was the former president and he wants to build more leaders like us, and hindi lang sa school natin where we can be student leaders but also for our fellow youth. Yun, like me, sumasali ako sa mga national organization, sumasali ako sa mga org dito sa LPU, and yung mga gantong leadership skill, parang mas nag-grow ako as an individual, mas nare-realize ko na yung mga decision na dapat ginagawa natin hindi lang para sa atin, and these are just some of the core values na talagang grabe maka-impact sa atin. And syempre, marirealize din natin as time goes by na for our own good, for our betterment as a person, itong mga core values ng LPU.
Like what I said earlier, it is my guide of how I will lead my office, the student affairs, as well as how I guide the student leaders on becoming effective and inspiring student leaders of the school. So, ayan.
Okay, these core values remind me to stay good. That beyond knowledge, intelligence, or wealth, I always have to maintain my character.
As a Lycean, what core values do you possess the most? Give a scenario to support your answer.
As a Lycean, I think the core values that I possess the most are God-centeredness and service orientation. Whenever I feel like I have a problem that I could not solve by myself or by anyone around me, I always pray to God for help. I always ask God for guidance so I can make the right decision not only for myself but for the people around me. And second is service orientation. I think that the path that I'm walking on right now is my calling. So despite that it's dangerous and difficult to be part of the front lines right now, I think pursuing this profession would be a really huge help for the Filipino community. And the institution, I think, has molded me to become a healthcare provider who does not only perform well, but also who prioritizes the welfare of the whole community.
Pagiging leader, hindi ka lang leader kundi follower ka din dapat. Hindi dapat parang triangle yan na ikaw yung nasa taas, sila nasa baba. Hindi. Dapat horizontal leadership. Ito yung tinuro sa Junior Tourism and Hospitality Management Association of the Philippines, wherein sumama ako doon, and together with my Lyceans like from LPU Laguna, may nakasama ako, Batangas, Davao, ganyan. And with that, sa tingin ko napoposes ko yung leadership kasi napapractice ko siya.
I possess the most yung leadership as being the office head, being the advisor, and then leading the student organizations. I think yun ang pinaka napapractice ko among all the Gleans. And then yung service orientation din, I forgot who defined it earlier. Service orientation comes to community extensions. I really love participating in outreach programs, ganon. Kahit nung college pa ako, it's one of my hobbies. Having donation drives, participating sa mga community extensions na nililid ni LPU Laguna. So like recently, an example of a scenario is that during the Taal eruption in January, we are part of yung mga nalimutan ko yung Pada Kitchen ni CITHM na nilid na tulong-tulong kami lahat sa LPU Laguna. Then every day we deliver food sa bawat evacuation center na yung mga affected ng Taal eruption. So hanggang gabi yun, nagsiserve breakfast, lunch, dinner, sinaserve ni LPU Laguna. And then just recently, last month, I was told by a friend, teacher siya during my college years, na kailangan nila ng help dun sa Pakil, Laguna. So, malayo na sa part ng Laguna. They need school supplies, mga bond paper, mga colors, ganyan, mga simple school supplies lang. So, me and my college best friend initiated to have this drive. Tapos dinala namin lahat ng naipon namin donation dun sa Pakil. So, ayun.
For me, the core value that I possess the most is God-centeredness. And the scenario that I can give is our current situation right now. Wherein, during this pandemic, all we can do is to trust God, to remain faithful, and to believe that everything happens for a reason. And all these things, all these sufferings will soon be gone, and we will all go back to normal.
How will you influence others to practice these core values?
I could influence other Lyceans to practice these core values by being a role model. If I become a good example for them, they will start to think about how better they can be, or how better they're going to be as an individual if they start to practice these core values.
First of all, you should start with yourself. Kasi, paano maniniwala yung tao? And, kunyari, you should practice what you preach. Yan yung isa sa mga controversial. Kasi madaming hypocrite ngayon na parang sasabihin, advocate ka ng ganyan. Pero nakikita nila parang iba naman yung ginagawa mo. Dapat, you should always practice what you preach. Na kung ikaw, dapat, yun nga, pinapractice mo yung LPU core values like leadership, love of God. Dapat ginagawa mo siya, dapat nagre-reflect siya sa actions mo without sacrificing kung sino ka talaga.
Applying the core values naturally, hindi pilit, hindi siya parang ginagawa ko siya kasi gusto ko siyang talagang may ano kay student or kung sa kay mga kaibigan ko. Ano lang, parang simple lang. If yun nga, pag-lead ko sa mga officers, pag-guide sa kanila, ganon, I'm being true to myself. I think yun yung, and then it goes naturally sa mga makakasalamuha ko, mapa-student or mapa-workmate man.
For me, one way to influence others to practice these core values is influence by example. I always believe in humanity, in the goodness in each and every one of us. That when you show goodness to someone, that person will pay it forward. Not necessarily giving back the offer to you or returning the favor to you, but it's showing goodness to another person. And that is what I always remind my students. That in everything that you do not expect for anything in return, but at least try to pay it forward.
How would you handle a situation where you made a big mistake but you were the only one who knew about it?
I would think through it really well, and then I would ask for God's guidance. I always believe about God's signs, and it helped me a lot to make the right decisions.
Medyo tricky nga siya ng question, pero dito mo malalaman yung integrity mo as a leader, na kahit when we say of integrity, ito yung parang isa sa pinaka-essential na parang value of leadership. Na kasi when we say integrity, this is like honesty, na parang meron kang you stick to what is right talaga, as in na you go over honesty more than loyalty. Pero syempre, you never sacrifice loyalty naman at some point. Kung may nagawa kang pagkakamali na walang nakakaalam, syempre as a leader, dito mo nga masusubok yung integrity mo. You should be honest. Kasi kung gusto mo man yung itago kahit kailan, sabi nga nila, no secrets will remain parang hidden. Lahat yan magsisurface siya. And pag nangyari yon, syempre ikaw tinago mo, nagsinungaling ka hindi lang sa sarili mo kundi sa kanila, masisira mo yung trust nila. Dapat bilang as a Lycean, bilang as an individual, bilang leader, dapat you should be accountable of your decision. You should be accountable of everything that you do. Na college na tayo.
Okay. Actually, nung nabasa ko siya, wala akong maisip. Kasi I'm a kind of person na usually na have this challenges. Mahilig ako mag-consult. Consult kay boss, consult sa friend, ganyan. So, I don't remember anything specific na nasa situation ako na malaking maling bagay na ako lang yung may alam. Kasi I'm a kind of person na I usually before I decide something, whether it's from a mistake or for whatever kind of decision, I grew up na gusto ko may kinoconsult ako. So, ayun. Kaya wala akong malalang situation.
For me, handling that situation is very difficult. But it starts with reflecting with God, asking Him for forgiveness, and trying to understand your reason for doing that. And asking for God's wisdom, for God's guidance, to give you strength not to commit the same mistake again.
These core values are just some guiding principles on how the LPU Laguna builds the character of individuals and guide them to a more successful path and journey. This is your second home, and the community is your second family. Lyceum of the Philippines Laguna, truth and courage for God and country.